Niresh Eliathambi on behalf of Newsfirst. Now, Sri Lanka is not out of the woods by any means, even though we have a new president, a new cabinet, a new parliament. It's still tough going, but perhaps with the latest developments on the economic front, there could be some light at the end of the tunnel. And to discuss this with us tonight, we have Dr. Harshana Suriyapperuma, who is, of course, our new Deputy Minister of Finance. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Harshana.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations on your appointment, of course.
Thank you so much.
Right. So, Dr. Harshana, now this week is important because we do have, I believe, on Thursday, the vote on account. And could you take us through briefly what that entails for those who don't understand exactly what it is, and how it will, in a few months' time, lead up to the budget?
Sure. Thank you once again for having me. The process of vote on account is in the absence of a budget for the subsequent year. Typically by November the budget would have been presented to the parliament, and the members of the parliament would go through that one, debate on it, agree, disagree, identify changes and finalize the budget. That's how it would have happened normally. But since this year we had two elections, presidential election as well as the general elections, there was not sufficient time, adequate time to prepare the budget and present it to the parliament. So this is not the first time, many times in the past as well, when there is no adequate time to present the budget to the parliament, until a full budget is presented to the members of the parliament to go through, a temporary arrangement is made where for 4-month period, a temporary budget, a small period to cover that small period, the budget is prepared, presented, approval obtained from the parliament and continued. However, during that period, the story does not end there. I will come back and elaborate in little more detail. During that 4-month period, it is a requirement that we prepare the full budget and present it to the parliament as well. So, if we go back to the vote on account, the government has major expense lines. At the same time, there are major revenue lines that need to be maneuvered in a manner that we will continue the hard-won gains so far and creating a very good stable position as we move on to the next financial year, to the next fiscal year. So, in that period, main line items are identified. There are commitments in terms of creditors that we need to meet. There are commitment in terms of salaries and wages. There are commitment in terms of contracts, ongoing contracts, etc. So, by taking these various items into account, and a particular estimate is made and presented to cover basically the first 4 months. And compared to how it was before, based on the involvement of the IMF, obviously we know we were announced as a bankrupt nation. So there were additional measures that were brought in, for example, the public finance and the debt management protocols, the new acts that are in place. There are new requirements for the Treasury to present a statement regarding the expenses for the next period and the performance for the previous period prior to the budgets, etc. So there are a lot of new discipline angles that has come into the picture as well, in addition to just presenting a vote on account. So we have to be mindful of these requirements, meet those criterias, KPIs as a government, and present that one in a manner that is acceptable in one way. Even though it is for a 4-month period, that's going to be the stepping stone for the next financial year. For example, in terms of the assistance that businesses are required, assistance that people are required, etc., has to be factored into, because we can't say wait for 3 months and start providing those assistance and some of the relief. Some of the people are in dire need of some of these assistance, etc. So it is going to be the stepping stone. So a lot of importance and significance there. in terms of the vote on account as well. In addition to, I'm sure people are expecting after the new government being elected, we will encapsulate our manifesto in some form or the other in the vote on, it will be reflected to some extent in the vote on account, and it will be expressed in great detail in the main budget to come. For example, just to highlight, instead of going through a spending spree, careless and reckless expenses, we have to pay a lot of attention to the details contained in those ones. What are these expenses that is going on, because country is struggling to come out. So it's not a question of simply increasing the taxes and transferring the burden to people. If that is the case, then we need not to be around. The previous parties could have continued. So we have worked very closely with the team members in these institutions, lot of capacity available in these institutions. Once they also get used to the system that we are trying to approach, our methodology, how detailed we are in terms of getting into some of these details, they started cooperating, and it was quite easy in that extent because of that support. But it's once again a careful, very considerate approach to make sure we will have a vote on account over the first 4 months of spending power, revenue collection ability, because that's going to be the foundation or the stepping stone for the next financial year. Now, if I move on to, if it is okay, I can elaborate on the budget, or
please do.
So then, based on that, the first quarter is basically getting covered in the vote on account. We thereafter has to look in more details to the content in our manifesto, what we mention in our policies. It will be the economic policies, the education policies, the health policies, tourism policies, etc. Numerous policies that we put forward to. So we need to ensure these budgets that are getting prepared is to deliver the plan that we shared with people. So we need to have a thorough understanding of what are these requirements that we indicated to people through our manifesto and through our policies, how and which of them can be delivered in the year one, because that's going to be our first complete year as the government. So identifying them, prioritizing them, obviously looking after the economy, the stabilization factor we gave as one of the main key pillar in our economic policy as well. So what are the main things that we need to do to create this economic stability, then providing relief to people who were really struggling. And we came to know since we start having more access to information, which we didn't have when we were not in the government, even the amount allocated to provide relief to people was not effectively utilized. It is just sitting in the accounts. So we had to prioritize these things, identify these things. So that is the basis of prioritizing. One is the stabilization program, providing relief. Then obviously that is the main item in the budget. What are the items that we are going to introduce to create this production economy that we were discussing? So a lot of focus, lot of attention as we go, we can start discussing on them. So teams are working as we speak also, lot of support from everyone. We are able to understand the way how it was done in the past. It could be sometimes simply increasing the amount as a percentage basis and it was carried out, whereas in our case we are looking into more details, what's the real need and how it's going to marry with the manifesto that we provided. If we travel on that path, is it allowing us to create the economy that we are looking at? We openly mention that we are going to take the economy from about $18 billion of exports to $45 billion economy. That means we are talking of more than doubling the size of the capacity. And we need the workforce, our human resources to be aligned, our capital to be aligned, our infrastructure to be aligned. So lot of things that we have identified, lot of details in the coming budget, just to give you some in a nutshell.
This week we have, of course, the vote on account, and then in early January the appropriations bill would be presented. And then what about the full budget? Would that be in February?
Yes. So it will be very likely, because we have there are certain preconditions that we need to meet, which are called the prior actions as per the IMF program. So some of these have been identified with certain time frames and parameters as well that we need to meet. So accordingly, we are supposed to, it is not a choice to present the vote on account, then present the appropriation part of the main budget early next year within the first month, and we are trying our level best, if everything goes well, the full budget also to be tabled, and then it will be taken for first reading, and we are expecting the second reading to happen by mid-February, or let's say latest by late February, obviously allowing it to be reviewed by the IMF, saying that we have met the required prior actions, allowing the IMF board to provide necessary approvals thereafter.
Now, Dr. Harshana, the last government under President Wickremesinghe, their policy was to tax the people more, which they certainly did, driving millions below the poverty line, and to use that money, that was what they played with in order to for all the expenditure of the government. But your party, the NPP, came to power on a platform of no more taxation. In fact, you all are trying to reduce taxation. And also you are providing relief and subsidies and so on. So there is that much less money, revenue for you as the Deputy Finance Minister when you're trying to balance the budget, because you have less revenue and more expenditure. Could you give us some details on this? Because so far you have had, I think, a kerosene subsidy, a fertilizer subsidy, and there was a tax which was reduced on the fuel supply. So, I mean, these are not small amounts. We are talking about hundreds of billions of rupees. So could you quantify it and tell us, how you all manage this?
Sure. So I'll give an overview first to get a gist of as to how we are proposing to do that one. So obviously, as you very correctly mentioned, previous approach was the easiest way out, which is taxing the people irrespective of whether people have the ability to absorb this pressure or not, without looking at what are the things as a government they could do to reduce expenses, and what type of relief that they could be providing to people. Instead of taking that easy way out, we were looking at in different angles, not just increasing revenue only to meet IMF targets. We were looking at how to provide a dignified life to people, which is one way is government need revenue, but at the same time we could do things to reduce the cost, the burden on people. That could be done in two fronts mainly. One is by reducing the cost of living of people. What are the things that we could do to bring down the general prices out there, the affordability, increase the affordability of items, essentials, etc. Other angle is how could government reduce wasteful expenses, because this revenue that is getting collected was getting absorbed by these wasteful line items that were there to maintain a life style for politicians and certain high officials that as a country we could not afford to. And at the same time, the most insignificant part is lot of money that government should have earned was leaking out due to corruption. So our approach is through these multiple fronts. Obviously, we are working to increase the revenue, strengthen the measures. We are working with, there were so many existing programs and arrangements in place to improve the governance of the systems, to improve the capacity of the government sector employees, etc. So we are continuing on those lines that will allow us to increase our revenue up to an extent. But at the same time, some of the bigger holes that where the revenue was leaking out, the amount of money going out through collection agencies, lot of effort is being put. We have started, obviously, new heads for these institutions have been appointed, new team leaders have been appointed, new boards have been appointed to many of these entities. So by taking lot of preventive measures to minimize the leakages from one side, And on the other angle, there are certain expense line items as consciously at ministerial levels, they can relook at it whether these expenses are required given the situation that the country is currently in. So we have taken these multiple approaches, and in one side the savings, in one side the reduction in leakages, and at the same time the improvement of revenue from another angle also. That's kind of the flavor for the first year, because the level of expansion to the economy, we believe some improvements will come, very good amount of improvements will come in terms of expanding the economy as well. We can see the way how the tourism sector is performing, we can see how the market indices are performing. So that shows a lot of confidence that investors will come, markets will start moving well, production will take place both in the manufacturing sector, service sector, agricultural sector, and some of the remittances obviously that we are expecting as well. So it's a multi-front approach to get going where we are planning. So through the revenue that we generate and the savings, obviously we use that one to finance part of one of the most important items or the pressing needs as of now, to provide relief to people who are struggling. Nearly 1/3 of the population was surviving and struggling with one meal a day. Nearly 50% of people due to multidimensional poverty was barely surviving with 2 meals a day. So there are so much of pressing issues. Then we have to get the boats out back into the ocean instead of they are stuck in the beaches. We had to provide relief to fishermen, the community who were taking the large fishing institutions who were taking trawlers out for multi-days, nearly a month in the ocean. So we made certain arrangements. We can already see some good results, lot of harvest being brought back, etc. So it is not just handing out economy, and we are in consultation with close monitoring with those associations that we work many months prior to the election as well. It's an understanding. We indicated to them very clearly, it has to be some form of KPI driven, it has to be some kind of an arrangement. If a kerosene subsidy is given and that is being channeled and siphoned out to someone else, as a country we are not going to get the benefit out of it. We expect you to bring fish back and provide to people. So this supply has reduced the pressure out there in the market. So it is helping the prices to get adjusted. Unfortunately, the prevailing weather what we had during the last week or so is putting some pressure onto the system, but we are very well geared. Our counterparts, regional counterparts and global counterparts are providing a lot of support and encouragement to maneuver this situation that has been created by recent floods and weather conditions, etc. So we are working with all these possible angles, and with that one we are confident that number one, we can increase our revenue, number two, we can reduce our leakages, number three, we can reduce wasteful expenses. Through this process, we will incentivize the businesses to go back to the product, to go back to the field, start production. If it is an agricultural setup, producing more. If it is a manufacturing setup, produce more. That's where the energy pricing is very critical. So we have a system is in place to provide the maximum relief to manufacturers. Obviously, one hand people, the households are needing the relief, but at the same time manufacturers are struggling. Our cost of production was very high. So we were able to do things in a manner that is acceptable and palatable, in a gradual manner without upsetting the apple cart too much as well. And at the same time, how the dollar is behaving, you can see it shows the way how the broader economy is getting managed. So it has provided some relief to some of the importers, but exporters may not be the happiest category given the situation. But we are getting there. Some of the key items that they asked for during our election campaign also, exporters had a lot of concerns and issues, pressing needs that need to be addressed, etc. for them, because as I said, we are talking from 18 billion to 45 billion economy. So we need to get the support from everyone to continue these benefits and relief to people. We have a good package that is coming out. So in time to come, we will understand more details about it. Thank you.
We will be taking a short commercial break. We are in conversation with our Deputy Finance Minister, Dr. Harshana Suriyapperuma. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD, a symbol of stability.
ජාතික මෙහෙවරින් අපි කතා බහ කරන්නේ පුරුෂ පාර්ශවයට කාන්තා පාර්ශවයට වෙනසක් නැතුව ආයුර්වේදයට අනුව ලස්සන වෙන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා.
හොඳම මොයිස්චරයිස් එක තමයි කොමඩු.
යම්කිසි වයස් මට්ටම් වලට පැමිණෙනකොට ඇතිවෙන බෝන් නොවන රෝග තත්ත්වයන් තුලදී කොයි ආකාරයෙන්ද ඇස ආරක්ෂා කරගන්නේ?
බහුලවම අන්ධභාවයට පත්වන රෝගී තත්ත්ව ගත්තොත් ඇත්තටම ලෝකයේ ලංකාවේ දෙකම නම්බර් 1 ඇත්තටම තියෙන සුද ඇහි සුද.
නිරාමිෂ සිතුවිලි වලින් තමයි පිබිදෙන්නේ. ඒ වුණාට ප්‍රශ්නේ ටික වෙලාවක් යනකොට වෙනස් පැත්තකට යන්න පුළුවන්.
මූලික අරමුණ සියදිවි හානි වැළැක්වීම වුණාට ඕනම කෙනෙකුට ඕනම ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඕනම ගැටලුවක් ගැන කතා කරන්න අපිත් එක්ක යොමු වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
ජාතික මෙහෙවර සතියේ දිනවල උදෑසන 11ට.
Step away from the conventional art of storytelling. Get ready for the Newsfirst Breakfast Rundown with me, Zulfikar Farzan.
Welcome back to Face to Face. We are in conversation with Dr. Harshana Suriyapperuma, our Deputy Finance Minister, a person who is very much in the limelight because we're expecting great things of our economy, and he has to guide us along with the President and his team. Now, Dr. Harshana, one of the questions which a lot of middle class people want to know, will there be a reduction in income taxes? I mean, it is at 36%, unbearable, and we've seen a massive brain drain, doctors and engineers leaving the country because of this high taxation. Is it going to be changed? Are the bans going to be broadened or the rate brought down? And when can we expect this?
Sure. So as we have indicated during our election campaign as well, we are going to provide relief. To what extent we can go for is as of now we are working, we are in negotiation with the IMF teams because there are certain hard parameters that we need to meet, but there are a lot of leeway also that they have provided to us. So far the discussions, I'm happy to say, is quite successful, and I'm sure we will be able to provide a very decent amount of relief, particularly to the lowest income bracket, and obviously the professionals who were suffering a lot as well. But at the same time, we need to be mindful of the impact into the total revenue generated as well. So by taking all those into account, it's not just because we gave a promise prior to the election and we just want to do it, not necessarily, because there are more than one ways of getting things done. So we are utilizing all those tools that are available, I would put it that way, to provide that relief to people. I'm sure we will get a good outcome when the budget is presented.
Dr. Harshana, the lifting of the ban on vehicle imports, what's it going to be like? Is it going to be for specified types of vehicles or a complete lifting of the ban? Or how's it going to be?
Sure. Very timely question. I suppose many are eager to know the status. So given the situation that we are currently in, even though we want to open it up full, it will be little difficult to open up everything at once, but eventually it will be the case. We want to get there as fast as possible. So the stage 1 is to allow passenger transportation vehicles to be brought into the country. That will be facilitated very quickly, I would say. The second phase will be to facilitate commercial vehicles to allow to come into the country, and the final stage will be for private vehicles to be imported into the country. In an overall nutshell, if you look at that picture, why we are doing it that way is we need to be mindful of the reserve position of the country. We need to be mindful of the pressure it will put on the exchange rate of the country as well. So I'm sure we have looked into the past data. The government officials have provided the data. So we have kind of looked at and simulated certain scenarios that could be that possibly could play out there. So based on that, a very conscious, I would say a prudent decision within the parameters of the IMF program as well that we have taken. So it will be on a staggered stage by stage basis. It will be monitored to make sure we need to ensure that no one misuses this arrangement that we are going to bring in as well. So safeguards has to be built into the system. So it will going to be a comprehensive approach, careful and considerate approach to benefit everyone. I'm sure it will government, we have factored for some revenue generation through the duties and taxes that will come through that angle as well, but it's not necessarily because of the taxes alone. People were deprived of that for many years as of now. Many who could afford, we need to allow whenever there is a breathing space for them also to take part and start enjoying the life, to take part in the economic activities, passenger transportation. That's why the Honorable President indicated we'll focus what benefits the people most, which is to address the transportation problem that we have, allow that to be come in. Then the next, in addition to the stage 1, will allow more vehicles to be brought in that can be used in the tourism sector, because that's going to be a key driver. We have the existing infrastructure place, manpower is available even though we have lost some. So the first phase 1 will support this economic activity to encourage more mobility and to contribute to the economic activity. Second phase is the commercial vehicles for distribution, transportation, etc. Once again to contribute to the economic activities. That's why it is coming through, it is extracted through our production economy plan. We looked at, in order to reach the milestone, what are the things that we need to do as step 1, step 2, step 3. So people's assistance facilitation is first. That's why the passenger vehicles. Production vehicle expansion, allow businesses, small and medium sector, larger businesses to get their businesses into the next level. That is where the commercial vehicles are coming in. With those benefits, we will monitor how the facility is being used by the importers, by the general public as well. So some close monitoring will also happen in this period. And as I said, some safeguards will also be built into the system. Based on that, it will be allowed to import the private vehicles as well.
Now, there's some revenue generation expected from this, from the vehicles coming in. But now, given the fact that most of the privatizations, the planned privatizations of the last regime are not going to happen, that's the NPP's policy. So there is a reduction in projected revenue in that sense as well. Of course, that was money we never had, but had the last government continued, possibly we might have had it. So how do you expect to bridge that gap? Are there any other revenue generation measures that you're considering?
So as you said, interestingly, there will be an impact onto perhaps to the cash flow, because some of the entities that were put on the chopping block to be sold out, the conscious decisions are made. When you mentioned that we are not going to go ahead with this, looking at these options of inviting investors, I would like to reframe it that way. We were very open about it even prior to the elections. Certain entities that we believe providing a service to the entire economy, to energize and to stimulate the economy, it is very important for the government sector to play a major role in that area. Classic example is energy, the CEB. So it is not just an entity that's selling a service or providing selling goods or services out there. The behavior of the CEB, the electricity generator, and the pricing is going to impact the entire economy. the cost of production will go up, it will impact households as well. So that's where we believe there is there's a compelling case when you look at some of the countries who have reached to certain milestones in their journey, like if you look at South Korea, if you look at Vietnam, even if you look at India. So there's a major role that government is playing in these sectors. So it is not a deviation from global practices even in some of these countries. So we are very conscious, but at the same time we are very certain some of the institutions need to go through reforms and restructuring, perhaps including the CEB, perhaps including, if you look at even the Sri Lankan Airlines and many other institutions of that nature. So the fact that it is not going to get sold does not necessarily mean we are not going to get the cash flow that we were expecting. Perhaps some form of joint ventures, if we are going to look at onto those entities, and by changing the operating model of some of these entities, we can reduce the cost. If you look at the electricity board, many would be of the view that we will undercut the price below the cost and subsidize it to the people. It is not the case. We have a very long-term view. Our objective is to reduce the generation cost. Some of the tenders, big ticket items that were controversial, that we were also quite vociferous in the past. If we decide to go ahead on those prices, definitely we had to sell, because there's no way to without selling those, unless we sold at a higher price, people are the institution is not able to recover. So that's why we were vociferous in the past, saying this type of engagements is not in the best interest of the country. So our approach to electricity generation, the energy sector, is to reduce the generation cost, through which we believe, based on the expert input that we have obtained continuously right throughout, the actual generation cost could be significantly reduced within the medium term to long term. Through that, we are going to reduce the price. So that's going to generate savings. Question relates to, if we don't sell, we don't get the cash, then how are we going to manage? How are we going to fill the holes or the deficit that is created through that? Whereas this institute, we will manage it more efficiently. There are systems already getting implemented, we can see. And at the same time, by going through certain restructuring and reform programs, we believe we should be able to get a better outcome. So some impediments in terms of the cash flow, we understand that one. We have projected those challenges as well when we are preparing our budgets, etc. So there are many other alternative means that we are making use to balance those challenges also.
And we are almost out of time, Dr. Harshana, but I'd like you to address the area of foreign direct investment and the fact that we need to make a quantum leap in getting investment. For example, earlier this year in Malaysia, we saw, I think it was Apple, Microsoft and Nvidia, giant corporations, among the largest in the world, and they, all three of them, invested billions of dollars into Malaysia. So they're setting up basically their Asian headquarters in Malaysia. So now Sri Lanka just isn't in that league. We, I mean, when you talk to possible investors, they are not even looking at us. That's basically because we have various issues. We have labor policies are not very investor friendly, infrastructure, transportation, various issues. How would you set about getting us to that, to where Malaysia, Vietnam, India, that kind of attractiveness to investors?
Sure. So one of the key criteria that investors are looking for, are their money safe? What is cost of doing business in that country? So if you look at the corruption index, the position where Sri Lanka is in, there's no wonder a sensible investor want to look at Sri Lanka, yet alone a very reputed brand who wants to get into Sri Lankan soil. So, and at the same time, currently it is a bankrupt nation. So when you put those things together, there is no reason why an investor should consider Sri Lanka as an investment destination. So that's why we were championing the cause continuously, that we are going to address this corruption issue. It allows these large investors, credible investors, investors with clean money to relook at Sri Lanka. Another major challenge is the debt restructuring process that we were going through as a country, because we had to get our rating. If the rating agencies are saying this is not worth investing, no sensible investor, as I said, will look at Sri Lanka for investment purposes, even though we have so much of potential. The the geographical advantage that we have, natural resources we have, etc. There's no reason why investors should not be coming in. So when you look at the reasons are historically mainly because of the corrupt culture, the commission-based institutions, and the type of lethargy and the extensive time that investors had to take to get approval to do a project in Sri Lanka, etc. And we are determined to address. There are plans in place, and as we speak, things are getting slowly into the rolling space or the moving gear. And we believe we should be able to address those circumstances to win the confidence of those investors. As of now, quite a number of investors have approached us, and they are very keen and interested the way how we have managed and stabilized the economy. And we believe, and they are also confident, we will be able to successfully complete the debt restructuring process. As a result, our rating structure will get into a particular level that allows investors to relook at Sri Lanka. With that one, we believe we will get premium investors looking at Sri Lanka. And we
now, Dr. Harshana, now we keep hearing this phrase, Sri Lanka is a bankrupt nation, or more specifically a bankrupt government, and it is very stressful to all of us. We're living here, and we it hits our psyche. Our national pride is dented, and of course there are levels of bankruptcy, and it is related, of course, to the ratings, which is again basically all about how strong or weak our economy is. Now, what is your plan, or the NPP's plan, to get us to that level in the ratings where we can finally say we're not bankrupt?
Sure.
At what point? This may be an unfair question because you've only been in office a couple of weeks, but at what point? Is it next year, year after that? What's the target?
So if you look at it, I think there was some circulation in the market I saw today. One rating agency has already indicated they are going to look at positively about Sri Lanka, and they will consider upgrading based on the outcome of the debt restructuring process. I think that's a very good outcome for a rating agency to announce it prior to the debt restructuring process is completed. That shows the confidence these agencies have in Sri Lanka, particularly about the new government, the way how we are handling things, because they will not make a statement in isolation. They are in touch with the international agencies with whom we are working with. The relationship we had, the confidence we have instilled in those officers who were here during the intense discussions and negotiations that we had, and the way how we approached, instead of changing everything, throwing away all the good things, that lot of effort that people have put into. Obviously, even though there were other avenues that we looked at. So when you consider all of them, we believe a significant improvement will happen in the near future. We are expecting the debt restructuring process to complete before 31st of December this year. It's difficult to predict at which point the rating agency will put us at that point, because some of the instruments are a little complex. For the first time, even in the global field, some of these macro-linked bonds, governance-linked bonds is also coming, so they need to look at the terms, the investor appetite for these instruments, etc. So it will allow us, for independent rating agencies to take us to a particular level. But as citizens of the country, as businesses who are operating in Sri Lanka, as institutions, both government and non-government contributing this effort, we can very clearly see we will not going to be a bankrupt nation forever, because it is the collective effort that we put. As you said, it's very stressful as citizens, as people, so it's the collective effort that we put forward to. We had very good discussions with the SME sector. It is a very important part relating to Parate execution is coming to an end on 15th of December. So we are looking at, we had extensive discussions with the regulators, which is the independent central bank in this equation, with the banking sector, obviously with the SME sector, to understand their challenges. And our objective, as the Honourable President has indicated very clearly, look at means and measures of providing the maximum relief to the most number of affected businesses in these circumstances. So I think those will allow us to take some of our stress out and take part in this journey of rebuilding the country, engaging in their business activities, increasing the production capacity. Our view is to bring down the cost of production further, slowly. The stats have come for last month inflation. It is negative as I could see on the general media. So these are all good signs. If you look at the single policy rates by the central bank that was announced recently, which is again few basis points down from the previous rate, so cost of borrowing is going down. So all these good factors, we can be confident, we can be happy that it will lead us to a point sooner than expected to say, now we are out of this misery. But it's a collective effort. Only the government, politicians, it's difficult to do. With the input of businesses, with the contribution of citizens, I'm sure we will be able to do that sooner than expected.
A confident answer indeed, and I'm afraid on that note we are out of time, unfortunately. My thanks to our Deputy Finance Minister, Dr. Harshana Suriyapperuma, for joining us this evening. And thank you to you at home or wherever you are for watching. Don't go away, because the news is coming up next. Have a good evening.